that most politicians are very, very, very bad at it is pathetic. Especially since we accept that as voters. That's fine, because they wear the correct party colors. But anyway, part of what involves effective communication is understanding transparency. And this is another moment in time where an administration has the opportunity to show, to some extent, their true colors. Do they really care about transparency? Or is it just lip service every time they say the word? Similar to procurement legislation. It's lip service. They could say all they want. It's lip service. Because nothing actually is being improved in any substantial way that impacts the lives of the citizens of TNT. Or there might be improvements. It might look improved. It might even feel improved to them. But the system continues to chug along at its inefficient snail's pace, bumbling more often than not, fumbling half the time, stumbling the rest of the time. By releasing this report, you are basically showing the people we're willing to lay it all out for you. And then what makes it even worse is that a lot of the times, I believe, they don't want to reveal things to the public because they're afraid that the public will misunderstand, will misinterpret, will go down the wrong rabbit hole. Don't mind the fact that by not being transparent, speculation causes that already. So they're already defeating themselves. But then it goes on to the fact that if you want to be a well-respected leader in your community, in your country, if you want to be well-respected as a state leader around the world, as a head of state, well, president is the head of state, but the head of government, you know what I mean. Again, there's a reason why, when compared to Mia Mottley, every single one of our parliamentarians comes up significantly short. It's not just the Prime Minister, because he is one of the best of that weak lot. Because when you are giving out complex information to the public, part of the job of the leader is to guide us through it with effective communication, not to be defensive and argumentative when you don't like what people are saying. You are as much to be a teacher to the nation as a leader to the nation. But we don't really have that. We have limited information, half explanations and half truths. And then again, we're blamed when we are left with nothing, next to nothing, or even half of nothing. And we're blamed when we are left to our own devices to speculate, to wonder, because we don't know. And the opposition said something, how could you believe that? Well, you're only now giving us information because they made a claim and you have to refute it. Why can't you be upfront with things? Leaders lead. Followers come from behind. Will the government take the lead on this situation, or will they sit on it like they are with Clico? And then when the opposition makes a fuss about it, they will have to come afterwards as true followers. They weren't elected to be followers, they were elected to be leaders. That's why they won the election. But they will have to follow, because they don't know how to lead. Case in point, local government elections, where's the local government minister and the public relations officer of the party? Nowhere to be seen that night at Balize House. I guess the drive from San Fernando to Port of Spain is actually too long for important people. It's too far. He's the first person from San Fernando that I have heard of that apparently it's too far for him to make that drive. It's not like nothing important was happening that night. That's just an example. But why is the Clico inquiry not yet revealed to the public? What's being covered up with that? That's basically what we have to ask at this point. It's speculation. Maybe there's nothing covered up with it, but you're leaving us to our own devices. And I hope that the same thing won't have to happen here. Because Kiko, a lot of people lost their money. But here, 4 families lost their fathers, their husbands, their brothers, their sons. And of course, to each other, they lost their friends. And I do believe that those families deserve an answer, and Mr. Boudram deserves an answer. We didn't live through what he lived through. And he was lucky to have lived through it. But let the lip service begin. And that's all I'll say about that. Just before we go on a break, to go to our second story. The hostile witness, state's witness, whatever, in the 6 police officers murder trial, triple murder trial, she had a lawsuit over a security detail that went absent last November. She complained there were threats to her life and there was no investigation on it. And it seems as though, given that the trial is over and that she herself did not seem fit to appear at this court matter, the judge decided to throw it out. But that's not what's interesting to me. Oh, no. What's interesting to me is the fact that she also has another lawsuit. Because it seemed as though she had an agreement with an assistant commissioner of police to plead guilty to conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, and then the 3 murder charges would be dropped against her once she turned state witness and testified. And now, I still question if that deal is still valid. But then apparently she was also having further negotiations with the DPP. Which she wanted financial support after the trial and financial support to migrate after the trial. Now, I understand that life is hard when you're caught up in a mess like this. That's one of the reasons why you don't. Because she was charged. She's not some innocent bystander to this thing. She was also charged. Her testimony was to get her off of the charges, give her immunity to that. The fact that she's going to continue negotiations with the DPP now for financial support, otherwise what, she's going to withhold her testimony? The whole case seems to have been bungled from what I understand, right? From what I understand, there was more than enough evidence to charge them. More than enough evidence. The fact that the jury came back, what, an hour after deliberations to say not guilty, there's a lot of questions there. And I do think that the situation might be multifaceted, and it is a perfect example of the failure of the criminal justice system. And the Chief Justice could try to ask the new lawyers to expend themselves to make up for his lackings all he wants. But there's a failure all around. That whole court process, and potentially starts with the police investigation all the way down to the prosecution, how it was handled, etc., 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 etc. Some of it is their fault, some of it is not their fault, but it is what it is. The decision makers at the end, they have to take responsibility, right? That's what the buck stops here means. So now here we have someone who decides to double dip, and I don't understand how this was even allowed. And then, if you know that she is making financial demands after having a deal to not get charged, which I'm pretty sure somebody should have just told her, don't be greedy or we'll just not take your testimony and charge you too. Because from what I understand, there was more than enough evidence without her. But they wanted her, and I have to question now, was she in danger, or was that her proverbial rhetorical, well, I don't want to make the analogy because it might confuse, Was that her back door to get out of the situation, right? Oh, you don't want to give me my money? Well, I have a lawsuit pending and I'm afraid for my safety and blah, 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 blah. I mean, she legitimately could and should be afraid for her safety depending on what version of events you believe. But I don't know. This all smells rotten. And the fact that it was allowed to get here, I do wonder. Is this amateur hour? Do we not know what we're doing? Or is it that somehow in a country with, in the last 2 years, we're probably going to look at a 600 murder rate average. In the last 3 years, we're looking at something like 550 to 570 murder rate average. In a country with over 500 murders a year, we don't know how to handle murder plea deals, murder prosecutions, murder court matters, murder investigations. Is that what you're telling me? All these murders, and is it because our detection rate is so appalling that the prosecutors just don't have the experience dealing with these high-profile cases? This whole situation sounds like a complete and utter mess. Somebody has taken advantage of the system. It could be the former witness, it could be somebody in the prosecution, it could be somebody in the defense. I don't know, but that's what it smells like to me. Maybe I'm wrong, and I dare anybody with pertinent information to reveal it. Because it's not about me being right, folks. It's about getting to the truth. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the daily review, and then we'll welcome our guests later on in the program. Stay tuned to Talking One on WSN, your content capital. We'll be right back.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays, 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Welcome back to Talking Point and trying to wrap up some stories. A story was out in the papers yesterday, and there were more follow-ups today with regards to a school fight that happened in Signal Hill. Now, it's interesting, and I don't say that to downplay the seriousness of the situation, in that it seemed as though a significant amount of the students of a particular class ganged up on one girl. Most of the students themselves were girls. Some were boys, apparently. Some were boys that, for lack of a better way to put it, beat this girl down. She tried to fight back, and then eventually she was on the floor. She tried to hide behind a desk. At some point, they were kicking her. There were videos of this circulating in social media. It seems as though the Tobago police are going to be looking into this. Now, what's interesting is the families of the students, they are concerned that something is being covered up here. And they're asking the question, why would so many students have an issue with one? A physical issue with one student. And they are pointing the fact that they have tried to make reports about bullying that have went unanswered. And how this is being handled with suspensions just being thrown out before investigations are done. They're questioning that. And it does at least beg the question. Now, I hate to say this, but even if, because it seems as though some of the parents are trying to paint a scenario that the victim of the beatdown was a perpetrator of something that caused the rest of the students to gang up on her, so she is not entirely innocent. With that said, a retaliation like this is way out of proportion and should not be allowed. So I don't have an issue with the school punishing the children. It's one thing if a bully, assaults you and you defend yourself, and then other students help pull the bully away to defend you. But this is a beatdown, right? So at some point, I have to be consistent. Vigilante justice can't be allowed. Once the bully is more or less stopped engaging in the fight should be over, right? Overwhelming force to dissuade the bully, or rather the show of overwhelming force is fine. But actually utilizing it, one, and then utilizing it after the bully more or less can't really defend herself, that's somewhat bad. However, it goes back to what I said earlier with regards to, and it seems as though there's this next thing within our society about not wanting to reveal dirty laundry, because heaven forbid we might actually not seem to be the paragons of virtue that we, the proverbial, whoever authority we're speaking about in whatever situation, tries to portray themselves to be. So the we was rhetorical, by the way. And in this case, there's concerns for the parents where in the course of looking into this matter, the lead up to it will not be revealed, because I guess some people would not want egg on their face. I think the teachers union is saying, well, the teachers did nothing wrong with regards to how it was handled, but that is, I believe, with regards to their ability to stop the fight. The head of the union is saying, well, it could have happened during a break. The problem is, again, the parents are not saying about when the fight actually happened and stuff like that. Their concern was a situation allegedly persisted that led to this violent confrontation. And to some extent, they're blaming how that matter was handled when they tried to report it as parents to the school. And in that case, Tobago Division President Brandon Roberts, I do have to wonder, are you really aware of what happened before you're making statements like this? Or are you just doing what we do in society? We blindly defend because we have to defend our people and our position, because if we give up any ground, it will hurt our wage negotiations, because that's all we care about, wage negotiations and our money. Even Parliament only cares about their money, because the one thing they could come together to speak about was their money, their retirement, etc., etc. So this bears a hard look into. The other thing about this I want to say quick is the fact that I just had ASP Arun on Monday, and he pointed to toxic masculinity. And it's very true. statistically, we see it borne out. A lot of the violence is perpetrated by males. A lot of the targets of violence in general are by males. And then a lot of the victims of domestic violence and intimate partner violence are women perpetrated by men. Not exclusively. However, to some extent, I do have to wonder, if not experienced now within the young adult, 20s to 30s age brackets, demographics of the country now, and older, are we going to have a young generation coming up? Because we've seen it. A lot of these fights, it's not guys, it's girls. And now the Minister of Education is basically saying, well, the military-led academic training program, they're also looking at bringing that for girls. And perhaps we need to, I don't necessarily like the term toxic masculinity. I think it reduces the whole thing down and oversimplifies it. There's some truth to it, and I can't disagree with the results and the observations of ASP Arun. He's with that Special Victims Unit. But I do wonder if we have a generation of young women coming up and we might see a shift in toxic relations. And it's not just going to be men, young boys turning into men that's going to bring this sort of aggression. We might actually see it more from young women at the rate our education system is going, or should I say failing. And then I'm going to take a quick break, but I just want to say there was also a report. The opposition leader wants to raise the minimum age for marijuana use and gambling. And there's been some pushback on that. I'll just say this, because there are some reports where I believe a criminologist is saying, yes, because more young people are using marijuana now. And I like to say, well, hold on. Trust me, young people were using marijuana before it was legal. Making it legal did not improve that situation. And as some people say, you make it illegal, it will just make it more enticing for young people. The forbidden thing they're not supposed to do. They do it with drinking as well, right? The legal drinking age is what? 18 and older? Trust me, in TNT, the drinking age is not 18. It's illegal, but it happens, and it happens a lot. And it happens in a wide scope with great frequency. You want to fool yourself and think youth using marijuana is this new phenomenon? Listen, it's almost 2 decades ago I was in secondary school. And there were guys on the weed while still in school, when it was illegal for everybody. So, increasing the age, I don't really think it's going to make a difference. The illegal part of the trade was always there, was always working, will continue to work. And that's my opinion on that. Let's take a break. When we come back, hopefully we'll have our guest this morning. Stay tuned to WSN's Talking Point. We'll be right back.
My name is Carl Media. I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Have a content capital Christmas. It's the best time of the year. Now I know we have no snow, but Christmas is still here. Ho ho, the Christmas shows each week for all to see. Movie classics wait for you and our local content for free. Have a content capital Christmas, and in case you didn't hear, oh by golly, have a content capital Christmas this year.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday.
The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh, available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando, paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue St. Anne's, WESN 30A Gattaca Street Woodbrook, Metropolitan Bookshop Ariapita Avenue Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
Welcome back to Talking More, ladies and gentlemen. And I am joined by the communications pro himself from the UNC, the public relations officer, Dr. Kurt Mayhew. Dr. Mayhew, thank you for joining me. I know we've had some interesting technical situations going on, but thank you for sticking with us nevertheless.
It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be here.
So, you know, I mean, I do enjoy our conversations. I do feel that you're willing to face the fire, so to say. So I'm going to get it straight into it. The crime talks, they have continued to stall. So I do have to ask now, the current position of your side of the equation here. Is it that, because the last we've heard is that your leader has brought up the fact that she doesn't necessarily trust or believe Reginald Amor. Is this a sticking point that the opposition is somewhat saying, look, we need this to be rectified, or is it just a concern and it's not necessarily something you're going to dig in your heels with just yet?
Yeah, well, as the release from the leader said, we need to put our, whatever concerns aside and just deal with the good of the country, meet on that behalf. So, I mean, we are very, very disappointed that the Prime Minister, Stuart Young was just boasting that the Prime Minister thought the energy talks were so important he went all around the world to meet energy executives. But somehow the safety of citizens of Trinidad and Tobago aren't important. It's not a sticking point, but it's something that is extremely concerning and disappointing that the Prime Minister does not see it fit to attend the talks. So that's why the leader said, okay, if Gary Griffith is your issue, we spoke to Mr. Griffith and he has withdrawn. So you're going to send a team of Marvin Gonzalez, and I'm trying to remember who the other person
the Minister
is.
of
There was
Tourism.
Randall Mitchell. It was just someone totally irrelevant, and that's who you're going to send. And I mean, and you only want to talk about legislation, which is just Parliament thing. This is supposed to be more than that. So these are our concerns. We had a whole list of them, which we were supposed to discuss at the meeting. But these are not a hard and fast demand saying we won't meet unless. But these are very important concerns. They are not treating this with the seriousness it deserves, and we're just saying we must treat it with much more seriousness. Here are our issues, but we're not saying we won't meet unless. Right? This is what Keith Rowley has said. He's not going to meet. With Gary Griffith, he's not. They keep putting the conditions. They want 5 people and 4 people. They want to have the majority so they can reject anybody who they don't want to be on the team, with veto power. So they are playing games with this, and we just want to move forward. But we need to let the population know the games that the government is playing. They invite us with one set of conditions one day, then the next day they change the conditions, and then they keep changing the conditions with every single letter. So we will meet, but let's be serious about this, and we just want to place our concern in writing, on record, in public.
Well, I mean, other people might want to phrase it differently or ask you different questions, but what matters to me is I understand where you're coming from. But my issue is, in your position, I would be willing, or this is what I would like to see. Yeah, the government and what they're doing, and they're setting terms and potential roadblocks, right? But I feel as though on your end, on the opposition side, even if it's a disadvantaged position, even if you have to make all of the compromises, it would be a good indicator to the nation saying, look, we compromised. And to be fair, yes, you all backed off on the Gary Griffith issue. You all said, okay, if that's an issue, okay, Gary has bowed out. We're not going to continue this and continue making it an issue. My thing is, though, to have you all communicated to the government, look, we just want this done as soon as possible, how do we make this happen? Is it that you all have communicated? Are they not communicating? Or are there still like maybe one or two things that you all feel the need that you have to hold off from to settle before you all could have productive talks?
I think we just want to be clear about the terms before we go in, as to what we agree with and what we don't, and then we should be able to start. But but the last letter the last statement from the leader about the matter. Well, we hope that clears things up. But if we need to write yet another letter, then maybe that's what we have to do. But the statement was made very publicly, very clearly, that we definitely, we will make concessions if you don't want Gary Griffiths there, but please come to the table with seriousness. We don't want to waste people's time with this, right? But there were issues that were unclear, that we wanted clarity on. If they don't want to make it clear and they just want to proceed in that way, maybe they want another letter. If that is the case, then maybe that's what we'll have to do. But it's something that we will have to take a look at. And the leader is looking at that, has been waiting for the response, and if it's necessary for her to make yet another step forward, she will.
The whole situation, I guess it's one of those things, right? And I even wonder myself, to what extent do people really find this important? We don't necessarily see a lot of public outcry in general. There are specific things like what's going on in Sangre Grande right now for specific incidents. But how important do you think these crime talks are as we come up to what might just be now? We had the preview, we had the opening bell of the election with the local that just happened, right? The pre-fights, the undercard, so to speak. But now, how important is this issue when we might see our entire year essentially, effectively, whether officially acknowledged or not, of campaigning?
Well, in terms of the development of the country, this is absolutely important. Excuse me. Sorry, I just had a little cough. With the budget response from the leader, she had indicated that we cannot develop as a country unless we have security first. Right? We cannot move forward with these historic. We had a historic murder rate last year. It looks like we're going to break our record, sadly, this year. We cannot continue like this. This country cannot develop in this way, right? And we have to do this. We, obviously, we would like to be in charge of government so we know that something is going to be done properly, as we did in our last 2 terms of government. But in the meanwhile, we have a system of democracy in government and so forth. So we will work with the government to do this. But we have to do this. Our country is facing an unprecedented crisis in several areas, right? In the economy, in security. But the most fundamental of them all is our security of our lives, of our property, of living a proper social life. How can you have economic and social development when you're afraid to go outside, when you're afraid to make any money? You cannot socialize properly. You cannot have a proper life without with such a high crime rate. It has to be dealt with head on.
Well, speaking about the importance of this issue, and of course now important issues should, one would hope, influence voters constructively, right? If things are not being done, we need to make a change. Who do we change to? How do we make that change? We'll see potentially in the next general election. Now, one of your recently reacquired members veteran, storied senior members, Mr. Jack Warner, he has made statements with regards to basically stating, look, there are certain areas in the East-West Corridor that are very loyal to the PNM, but they are not necessarily seeing, I guess you could say, reciprocation. Now, you don't necessarily want to say, oh, because they're loyal, the PNM should, you know, give them a food to eat or anything on that level, right? But the fact of the matter is, there is a phenomenon where in politics around the world, some of the most loyal voting bases might be some of the most neglected, whichever political institution you're looking at. Is this now basically a sign that the UNC, to switch gears a bit, will be putting in more effort into these strongholds to say, listen, are your needs really being met? Will you be willing to trust us to try to meet your needs? Because to that group, they might be saying, well, you know, the PNM might not be meeting our needs, but we don't necessarily know if you would shift your focus from your strongholds to actually give us any focus as well. So how can we trust what you have to say?
Yeah, well, this is a very important and vexing point in many ways, because when you look at the record of achievement, in no way has there been discrimination by the UNC when in government. Sorry, we governed for the whole country, and it was shown in everything in terms of infrastructure, in terms of school building, in terms of job creation, in terms of social programs, sporting programs. It was right through. You know, and I'm glad you do make the point that around the world there are these strongholds, right? So in some ways, so in many ways, people like to say that Trinidad is some sort of exception, that somehow we are, more racially divided. It's not really about that. But I will say that the PNM really have been like a destructive death cult, and I have to put it that way, in that extreme way, right? At its worst, let me be a bit generous, because at its best, it's something else. But I'll give you some examples that I was just talking about to some people the other day. When you go back to the 1960s and you look at Rudranath Kapildeo's speeches, so in terms of traffic into Port of Spain, he had recommended a 2-lane highway, which you see in cities all around the world. So you have an express lane on top and then these filter lanes on the bottom. And, people said he was mad, right? So, and the PNM encouraged the members to call him mad for saying, which is just a very simple engineering solution. When he talked about getting to Maracas and he talked about blasting a hole through the mountains, people said he was mad. But this is done everywhere. It's normal engineering. But people said he was mad, and we didn't have those things. Let's fast forward up to 2015, and the PNM told their supporters that getting free laptops for their own children, for people who maybe could not even afford it, that was a bad thing. And people repeated that it was a bad thing. And I remember in campaigning in the 2020 elections online and getting into a lot of debates and so forth, and there was a point where nobody could logically refute what the arguments were and what could be said. And then this thing started trending where a certain, not everybody, but a certain group of people would say, I would rather suffer under the PNM than prosper under the UNC.
Mm.
And so there's a point where rational arguments don't work, because the rationality would be, yes, we get more. Yes, the country does better. But you know what? I don't want to. And that sort of cultish behavior is extremely dangerous. And we have to find ways, because I think many of the rationally deciding, rationally thinking persons make their rational decision. But there is a destructive element that openly says that they would rather suffer. And this is something that is extremely dangerous for our national development.
Well, I mean, as we're running out of time, I will say this. I have seen similar sentiments, right, around the world, particularly in Western democracies. It seems that political allegiance is very diehard. In other nations that tend to be a one-party system, you know, you can't really analyze their situation within this sort of perspective. So we have to stick with countries that have two legitimate parties or more. And one of the things, though, I do wonder is, to some extent, what's lost in a lot of these political systems is the undecided voters, the people in the middle. And maybe there are times when the ideologies push people away from the middle. They're convinced to not be in the middle, or they think they're in the middle when they're really not. There's a lot of complexities behind it. But in this situation, in our situation, yes, I agree with you. I might not use the language that you did, but I agree with you in that in a political system, while they might not actually live that sentiment, to be fair, but that is to kind of express how serious they are. Should it be that, look, we just hope that that's the minority, and let's try to reach out to the moderates, to the undecided voters, to the voters who at this point seem to be disenfranchised and they don't know who to go for. What will be done for them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly as we continue our public outreach, as we continue our programs, our weekly press conferences, our meetings, like tonight, for example, we have what we call the pavement report on Thursdays. So we're doing that every Thursday now, and that's we're doing it in Canoopia tonight at the Canoopia Market, so everybody is invited to that. And we will take it around the country. So the pavement report, what's different from the Monday night forum is that the pavement reports are much more focused on the communities with the councillors there as well as the MPs, and it's much more locally focused, whereas the Monday night reports are more nationally focused.
Well, Dr. Mayor,
so in terms of organization, but we what we have to do is really just keep reaching out, keep talking to people, keep mobilizing, keep being in contact.
I'm over time, but I have to be responsible and ask this question. What about people that might say that there might be similar elements in the UNC? What would you say to that?
Well, first of all, there isn't in what I've spoken about. But if there were, I think that would also be destructive. I do think that is not a healthy attitude to have for development in the country.
Well, okay. Thank you, Dr. Mayhew. We're more or less out of time, so we have to break on news in our hair, but I'd like to thank you for joining me once again. Always a pleasure to speak to a technician.
It's been a pleasure as well. I do enjoy our conversation.
Folks, that is the Communications Pro of the UNC. Now we have news in the hour, so we'll be right back to open the phone lines after this. Stay tuned.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sarah Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Former police commissioner urges mandatory body cam usage following controversial police-involved shooting. Fatal shooting in Diego Martin leaves a man dead and a 4-year-old injured by a stray bullet. Police seized AK-47, ammo and narcotics during an anti-crime operation in Carnage. And internationally, outbreak of bird flu killed 220 flamingos in northwestern Argentina. Now for the details. Former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith emphasizes the importance of police officers consistently wearing body cameras while carrying out their duties. His statement comes in response to reported protest actions linked to a fatal police-involved shooting on November 28, resulting in the death of 33-year-old Brandon Digicel. The incident occurred at 4:30 a.m. as members of the Eastern Division Gang and Intelligence Unit, accompanied by officers from the Eastern Division Task Force, executed search warrants at 2 residences in northeastern settlement Sangre Grande. On Tuesday, a man, Shaquille Williams, was tragically shot dead while socializing with friends in Digicel. The incident also resulted in a 4-year-old boy sustaining injuries after being struck by a stray bullet. The episode unfolded around 6:40 p.m. on Gilg Street, La Puerta, where Williams, 29, was confronted by 2 gunmen. He sustained gunshot wounds to his left thigh and hip during the confrontation. Attempting to escape, Williams ran onto Lewis Street, but tragically, he was cornered in a yard and shot again. In response to the attack, a police officer engaged the gunman, firing shots in the direction. Unfortunately, the officer missed and the assailants managed to flee through a nearby street. Amidst the chaos, a 4-year-old boy was also injured by a stray bullet. Residents rushed him to the St. James Hospital, and he was later transferred to another health facility, where he remained in stable condition as of Wednesday morning. During anti-crime operations on Tuesday, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service arrested an individual and confiscated a firearm, ammunition, and narcotics. Acting on received information, officers from the Western Division Task Force conducted an operation on November 28 in Seaview Hill, Caranage. Upon an intensive search in a densely vegetated area, the officers discovered an AK-47 assault rifle, accompanied by 1 magazine and 30 rounds of ammunition. The arrest and seizure were part of the ongoing efforts to curb criminal activities in the region. Internationally, an outbreak of bird flu has killed 220 flamingos in northwestern Argentina, officials have confirmed. The dead birds are of the James flamingo species, which lives at high altitudes in Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, and Peru. The H5N1 strain of the avian flu virus, currently spreading through South America, can infect an entire flock within days. It can also spread to humans and other mammals through droppings and saliva. Well, that's it. News on the hour on WESN. I am Sarah Ali. Thank you for watching.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Let The Home Store, turn your house into a home you love. Get everything you need to give your home that special look and feel. We offer household items, lawn and garden, paint center, hardware, plumbing, lighting and electrical, toys and storage solutions. 5 convenient locations: 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at Westmore, Pennywise Plaza Shoguanas, C3 Center Branch and C3 San Fernando. Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store, turn your house into a home you love.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to Soccer Man, ladies and gentlemen. And while we may have said our goodbyes, the PR of the UNC, he has decided to remain for our call-in segment. So he has made himself available to take your questions. You could call in and you could ask him, well, technically anything. However, while Talking Point has no bias for or against any political parties, what I will want to reiterate once again, because we have said this before, please be respectful. Even if you don't like the UNC and don't like what they have to say and don't like what Dr. Mayhew might say, please be respectful for him as an individual and let's have a respectful, mature conversation regardless of our disagreements. So you could call in with regards to whatever political situation. If you want to speak on the Commission of Inquiry, if you want to, that's supposed to be delivered to the President today. If you want to speak about anything else, general crime situation, or economic situation, the situation in Tobago at Signal Hill that I spoke about as well, or that the raising the legal age of marijuana and gambling. Call in and have your say. And while I'm here, let me just, well, as I was going to pose a question, we already have a caller from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller, you're on the air. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, and morning to your guest, Dr. Mayhew. Sean, I have to basically bring to your attention what you said a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
You're warning people not to be biased against the UNC. But why are you not warning people to be biased against the PNM? You have to be balanced. No, I want to talk about the most pressing issue that I have seen as of last night, the Paria Commission of Inquiry. And why the newspaper haven't painted it on the front page? There was a caption, "It is not an act of God." But there's 2 other critical issues mentioned. Not enough was done to save the people, the 4 divers.
Mm-hmm.
And he also suggested this is not merely an unlucky incident. What does that tell me as an ordinary person? It tells me the incident was man-made. It was man-made, and as a result of that, people have to be held account. And particularly, nothing has happened. The board's still in place. All the managers still in place. But what I want to connect is a critical dot. You remember that meeting with our Prime Minister with the Ayatollah? That meeting, and when he came back to Trinidad, was the same time this was happening in Paria. And I don't know if he suffered from some sort of medical condition. He ran away from a press conference. If he ran away from a questions, was he trying to mitigate questions from the press about this issue? Because 4 lives is lost, you are the leader of the country. You have to have a handle. Because his next door neighbor is the chairman of Paria. So if the next door neighbor, the chairman, he bound to whistle in the ears, hey, 4 people dead. I want to know who played God for that event to decide that these people are no longer viable as a living entity. Who snuffed their life?
Okay.
That is what I want to know. And I'm hoping the president's office has integrity to put that report into the public space. And more importantly, I'm hoping this is a chance for the Prime Minister. He wanted to put Gary Griffith's report into Parliament. This is an opportunity for him to put a report. The Lynch, Casey Lynch wants it to be, because the way and his facial expression, he felt hurt, and he was on the side of the 4 people, and both ram are gone. I'm saying nothing again. Morning.
Thank you, caller. Dr. May, we have another caller from Tobago waiting. Good morning, caller. You on there?
Hey, good morning, Sean. How are you doing this morning?
Morning. I'm having to relive Parry all over again is not the most pleasant thing, to be honest. And I'm not Christopher Boudram, so that's saying something.
Yes, it's very, very difficult in these times. Good morning to your guest also. I want to specifically comment on the incident that happened in Tobago with the Signal Hill students. We tend to sometimes look at things in silos, as if it's separated.
I'm not hearing the caller from Tobago. Are they speaking?
Yes. I don't know if it's at audio level, Tobago. I don't know if you could speak up a bit louder into the phone.
All right. Can you hear me, Sean, or not hear me, or what?
Dr. Mayo, can you hear him now?
No, not at all.
All right. Mic check, mic check.
We might be having some issues with the connection, Dr. Mayo, so please bear with us. Caller, if you could continue, and I'll try and relay your comments. It's about the situation in Signal Hill, I believe.
Okay. Right,
Go ahead, caller.
Okay. And what we're experiencing, Sean, and what we're seeing is the fruits, right? What the fruits are expressing is the uptake from the roots. What the roots are uploading to the tree is a lack of respect for law and order, individualism, lack of respect for each other, toxic relationships. When you have your leaders publicly saying, meet me outside, what the fruits of children are hearing is, this is how we handle things. When your leaders are saying to each other, mind your damn business, and this is public, you see, the children are hearing this. This is how you handle things. So we can't blame the children for behaving the way they're behaving, because the atmosphere is being seeded with a lack of respect for authority, a lack of respect for law and order, a lack of respect for each other, and that is being seeded throughout our nation right now, and perhaps not even our nation. It's probably a global thing that we see going on. So what we have to do is look for the solutions deeper than a conflict resolution course. Giving them conflict resolutions at this point, Sean, is akin to, you don't know how to drive a car, but I'm going to take you out and show you how to do defensive driving, how to handle a car when it's going into a skid. That's not where you do that. First, teach me how to drive. Let me know how to drive a car, the whole mechanics behind it, the courtesies and so forth, the nuances. Let me understand that, and then we can go to something like that. But I don't know how to drive, and you're going to take me out and show me how to handle a car when it goes into a skid? That's what conflict resolution at this point is. It's a Band-Aid, and it's something for the authorities to say, look, we're doing something about this. The children need instructions. Going from childhood into adolescence, puberty, where they're now starting to feel themselves, they need instructions, and they're not getting that. We are bringing up our children Russian roulette style, hoping that they turn out right. And there's specific ways in which children should be brought up. It was called rites of passage. And many indigenous peoples still have it in their place and in their homes, right? In the larger community, the African community, I could speak for that personally, we don't have it. It's something that was stripped away from us on the plantations, and we never put it back in place. Right? We substituted beating our children, and now that we can't beat them anymore, we don't know what to do. We don't know how to socialize our children. So they're expressing themselves the way the society has pretty much abandoned them, so to speak. That's my comment this morning, Sean.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for that. Dr. May, I think you might have heard at least part of what he said.
Yeah, I did hear. I did hear him in the second part. So I need to commend both callers. They're very intelligent contributions and valuable, I think.
And I do find what he says interesting. And let me use this as an example to refute the first caller's concerns. Generally speaking, if it's something specific, my criticisms will be for the specific situation. If it's something in general, and I have told Dr. Mayhew on air of some of my criticisms for his party's position already. And in cases like this, I think the caller was being respectful. He said leaders, and my assumption too would have been local leadership in Tobago. And I think that's his examples. But I would go a step further. I have concerns with regards to some politicians, right? I'm not going to say all, but I am going to say generally across the board might be too aggressive, too bombastic in their approach, not professional. That's why at the end of the day, some people might not understand why I call you the communications pro. Because at the end of the day, I appreciate the style of which you communicate. Now, some people might disagree with the content, but as a communicator, right, and the methodologies that you use, I very much prefer that to somebody going on a podcast or a live stream or whatever and just spewing vitriol or a radio show and what have you. And we've seen where one political leader has now had to more or less bow out from being a political leader after 2 lawsuits going against him back to back. So I don't know if you want to comment on the state of our political environment, because I do wonder if we kind of take it for granted the impact it has on our young people, the examples that we set.
Absolutely. I mean, I have to 1,000% agree with the caller. It's not the children to blame. It's the adults. It's the adults in leadership. It's the adults in leadership, whether it be in the home, whether it be in the community, whether it be in the culture sphere, whether it be in the political sphere and elsewhere, that it is the adults. You don't blame the children for what the adults are showing them. And so I 100% agree, and we must always strive to provide better examples, and so I have no issue with that. And I do agree, and I do lament that the political environment has been so coarsened. It's not a style that I prefer at all, but sadly it's been taken down to this level, and I wish it can be raised so we can talk intelligently about policy, about our future, about different ideas. But it's really been degraded. And I have to say this, Keith Rowley is such an abrasive person, and from that leadership position, it has brought everything down, and people feel the need to respond in kind, because when people have tried to respond with some sort of restraint or dignity, it's like the entire environment has been so coarse in that is not valued, and so you have to fight back, and it's really a vicious downward cycle, and we really do have to reverse it. It's not something that we should be pleased with or satisfied with. I agree.
And folks, those who understood what Dr. Mayhew did there, that's why he's a pro. And to be fair, I cannot necessarily disagree with you on principle, although I would not have necessarily done it in the context that you did it. But I will just say, wonderful move, sir. But we do have a caller waiting from Chaguanas. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning. I just hear you all. But I am glad you have your guest today, because the question I've been putting to you all for the longest while And it has to do with this crime plan. My idea is the crime plan is the laws of Trinidad and Tobago and official policy. And whatever government position should have been researched by the public servant, and that should have gone through your annual administrative reports, and it should have been available to the entire public to put up a thing. To bring the two leaders of two parties, who in my personal opinion is responsible for the crime, to discuss that by themselves is a waste of time. And finally, as regards yesterday with Carter, I listened to him and it was no wonder I wasn't satisfied because they was breaking up and I couldn't understand anything, so I don't understood either. But the point is on property tax, is when the government put up their first draft to give the local authorities, the regional authorities, the government property tax, the land and building taxes, when they do come out, they do the opposite, and they take away the boroughs and city. And I asked, where was the report? I suggested it was an American company they bring here, but nobody will give, Karen wouldn't give any information. Any questions, gentlemen?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if you want to just respond to anything that he said. I do have a follow-up from the previous point.
Sure. I couldn't quite hear everything he said, but I did hear him say that the meeting of the two leaders for crime would not be. He doesn't think that would be a solution at all. And this is exactly what Kamala Prasad-Bissessar said. Not necessarily that she 100% agreed with him, but maybe she did. But what she was saying was that the population has become so cynical or not trusting of the politicians, and also that there are people outside of the political parties that have valuable contributions to make. So we really should all be involved. And that has been from day one our request, but the government has been reluctant to do so.
Well, we have a caller from Claxton Bay. Good morning, caller. You on the air?
Yeah, hi, good morning, Sean and
Dr. Mayo?
To the member from the the opposition side. Glad to see that they're taking calls, man. But Sean, by now we should all understand that the corruption is because of the people who is in high offices. They must know that what they are doing, that the children down here is just following the suit. If we want to unite our people, you understand? We must be able to, say, these are people who say they went to university, they study, they had this, they had that, really, and to me, like, there's the most doted people that we see out here. You understand? Because you can't see what is happening to this beautiful country and want it to change. Come on. Well, let's get on board and let me do the right thing, because the right thing is the right thing to do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller. And I'd like to expand on that. Something that I actually wanted to bring up before the last two calls. And you made the point where, yes, at the end of the day, you know, that's the price of sitting in the chair. The prime minister is the leader, so the more responsibility comes on to him to set the example. Now, I will say this though, in defense of politicians in general, right? Because there are that type of voters. You might not see it from your party, and to be fair, I don't have a lot of evidence to say it's there. But let's just say in general, there are a lot of people who are diehard in their positions, right? In their loyalties. And I do wonder if to some extent, you know, that part of the voting population, some of them at least, not all of the loyalists, but some of the loyalists now, they do like the vitriol, they do like the bacchanal. They don't mind when Dr. Keith Rowley is very defensive and aggressive, because they'll be like, yes, get him. And they don't mind when say, Arnold Roberts is, you know, attacking and lambasting the PNM, because to them, you know, our economy is in such a mess. What is some words, right? just because it's aggressive, look how seriously things are. But I do wonder if, it's the politicians somewhat responding to the desires of part of the voting population, and that's why we are where we are today.
I agree with that. That is true, and there are different people with different, I don't know what to call it, levels of consciousness, people with different styles and tolerances of these sorts of things. And I mean, yeah, we enjoy political picong and so forth, but there's a certain level, I think, there's a certain line that gets crossed when you say, I don't care if this country goes to hell in a handbasket, just as long as we are there. When you reach that point, that I think it is, it is destructive, right? Yes, let's say approaching that line, yes, you have the aggressive politics, you have the picong, you have the, and that goes beyond the picong. But as I said, where it becomes dangerous is when you explicitly, openly say that I don't care if the country is doing worse. I don't care if all my fellow citizens are going to be, swamped with crime and criminality, and the economy is going to hell, and my children won't have a future. They won't even have laptops. I don't care. I just want my party in power, and to hell with everybody else. That is crossing a line, and that is really what I was referring to.
And now I do have to wonder, we have the flip side where you have those that are so invested in their party's success that they're blinded to the long-term, effects of what that means, right? It's not necessarily that the party has to be seen in a negative light, but the things done now, the individual things will cause individual issues. But the flip side to that is, as you pointed out yourself, there are those that seem to be, they don't have trust or faith, not just in a party, but say the system in general. Why bother? Why bother? We even had a caller this week that basically said, I'm just going to take it with regards to property tax. He reached the point where he ain't going to question it. He's just so apathetic to it now. And could it be that we're losing something there? Because a lot of the professionals who are already busy with their lives, they're just saying, look, we don't want to be involved anymore. You all sort it out. You all have this vitriol. You all like the bacchanal. We'll leave it to you all. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think one of the issues, and that we need to emphasize, is that there's a way in which democracy has been turned into a kind of a consumerist thing. And by that, I mean, it's like we sit back, it's like you're going to a grocery and you're looking at two different brands of baked beans or corn or something, right? Tin corn, and you're choosing between one and the other. So that is a kind of passive consumerist brand, when really, I think the best way, a thriving democracy, means that we need to create our alternatives. We need to create our own choices. And let's say you don't like this brand of corn or that brand of corn, but you wish you had another brand. The point is then, well, get involved and start to make some corn, if I want to stretch that analogy. But get involved, because nowhere in the world is there a perfect political party. Every political party in every single country has some flaws, has some shortcomings. And I always urge people, especially people who are critical. I've been critical of the system for most of my career as a political analyst, but I made the decision that, listen, I am going to try to implement the changes, not simply complain and wish the elites would change themselves, but to be part of the process. And and let's say in my case with the UNC is a democratic organization, and so you try to convince your colleagues to implement the changes that you yourself would like to see. And yes, you win some, you lose some. It's a process, but it's possible, and I have seen it in my own case that yes, things can change and have changed, but we have to get involved. It's not just we have to sit there as powerless voters just looking on the shelf to see what kind of corn they're giving us. No, we have the right, first of all, it's a right in our Constitution to be politically involved. That is the foundation of a democracy as opposed to a totalitarian or communistic system where you don't have that right. So we have the right to be politically involved, to be politically associated, and to make the kind of political parties and policies that we want. And so we have to get involved in the process. So I agree with you that people are turned off, but they are also disempowered, because they are made to feel as if they have no power. But we can all join political parties and try to work with our fellow citizens to bring about the changes we want, even in our own organization. The same could be. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, we're over time, so I think that is a reasonable spot to end there. I do like your point. I think a lot of people, it seems like we're in a totalitarianism, especially if we're not involved, then we leave them to their own devices. What is left with that? Thank you, Dr. Mayhew, for joining me, and hopefully we could do this again, and we'll have more callers calling in to ask you questions.
My pleasure, and have a great morning, you and all your viewers.
And folks, I'll just leave this here. For those that might say, well, how come Dr. Mayhew is here and we don't have someone from the PNM? The invitation is I'm going to publicly say, the invitation is always extended for those capable of public relations in the PNM to join me. That's a very specific way of saying it, and I'll leave everyone to speculate as to why. Today is a good day to have a good day. We can make it if we try, as my coach always says. But we will see you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
WESN.
I am Sule A. Joseph, and we are WESN, Content Capital.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
Is it politics? What is it that nobody cares about sports?